The land never runs out of ways to inspire us. With all the full foliage colors, nature teaches balance through its grays and quiet tones. Thus, color harmony starts by just being present. Even these bright moments, those fleeting reds, need grounding to feel alive. They represent moments of energy in a calm composition. In life, this appears organically, a single note of color against a muted surrounding. In this video, color, design, and texture work together to make the surface feel alive and responsive. Fall is in full swing here in southern Ontario, and if you've never been, I highly recommend it. The landscape is just incredible. Even with all the vibrant colors around, I find myself mostly inspired by the muted tones and the quiet grays and earth tones that sit against the endless kaleidoscope of color. Welcome, it's really good to have you here again. In this sixth video in the Art Tips series, we're going to explore how I draw inspiration from nature and how I developed my own personal theory on color. As you probably saw in the intro and the thumbnail, we're diving into a completely new medium today. I'm working with plaster mixed with dry pigments, something called true fresco or buen fresco for all you art historians. In fact, I've spent a lot of time with this technique in the past, so I feel pretty comfortable letting the textures and pigments interact naturally. It's a really tactile, hands-on way to work, and it allows for a lot of depth and subtlety in the surface, which is exactly what I want to explore in this piece. One of the reasons I chose this medium for this demo is how inherently it connects color, texture, and the surface. With fresh fresco or buen fresco, the pigment actually binds with the surface, thus creating this depth and tactile qualities you don't generally get with regular paints like on canvas or something. Historically, artists like famed Giotto from Italy built layers of pigment into wet plaster to create works that lasted for centuries yet still feel alive today. In fact, I was recently fortunate enough my family to visit one of his masterpieces in Italy in Padua called Scrovegni Chapel. There we are. And I can definitely attest to this. The plaster I'm using is gray-based and lime-based, which naturally softens the chroma of the pigments as I mix it in. I'll speak to more on this as we explore color in a bit. But beyond color, lime plaster is breathable and organic. It comes from the earth itself, part of a circle of life, absorbing and releasing moisture, interacting with the environment over time. Working with it makes you mindful of not just the color and composition, but the living, responsive quality of the surface, how the pigments, texture, and plaster all exist together in a kind of a natural harmony, akin to nature itself. For this painting, my primary focus is color harmony, rather than creating a strictly representational scene. I am interested in how colors can interact across the surface, supporting one another to create a composition that feels balanced and visually pleasing. Now, the texture of the plaster plays a central role in this whole process. The texture invites the viewer to engage not just visually but almost physically, making the surface feel tactile, alive, and maybe sculptural in nature. In many ways, the work becomes as much a small relief of sculpture as it is a painting. Even though, however, my approach here is abstract, the same method of layering, plaster, and pigments can be applied to a more realistic, figurative, or even representational landscape work. Essentially, the pigment binds into the surface, building depth and subtle variation that can support everything from, I don't know, impressionistic color studies to detailed, lifelike paintings. The gray plaster base plays a vital role in the overall process with respects to color, as it naturally softens the pigments like this cerulean blue I am mixing in with this palette knife. In a way, it grounds the colors, it mutes their intensity, and it kind of helps me maintain the overall subtlety across the surface when applying all of these mixed pigments in. For me, color isn't just about capturing what's seen out in nature. It's about translating that feeling, sort of like the feeling of the season and the landscape, into a palette that works across your composition and painting. I am always fascinated by the way muted tones can create a sense of calm, while small, well-placed accents can introduce just the right amount of energy and tension. So when I do introduce more vibrant touches inspired by foliage like this, they feel more purposeful and harmonious rather than jarring. When it comes to color, I've never really been interested in following a strict, rigid system, or formulas for that matter. You know the kind, mix this color with that one to get this color, that tone, and then use it here and there. For me, that kind of thinking takes all the spontaneity out of painting. It might be useful for learning, but it doesn't leave much room for intuition. So don't discount all those formulas, certainly know them. But when starting a painting, instead start with a game plan, sort of like a general direction that sets the overall tone. So for this piece, I'm working primarily with earth-derived pigments like yellow ochre, raw umber, burnt sienna, and this Indian red that I used here strategically as a sort of like a punch color. And of course, I got a touch of cerulean and ultramarine to break the overall warmth. These pigments are humbling, natural, and in a way endlessly versatile. The fact that I'm working with gray plaster is, as I said, an asset, but in a way it's a limitation as well. But I am aware of that limitation, and here's what I mean. A lot of people, advanced students if you want to call them, have a tendency to develop certain systems when it comes to color. For example, they add a touch of a certain color, in particularly for landscape work, to make things more uniform. So they'd add maybe a raw umber or maybe a yellow ochre to all of their pools or mixtures, and in that way create certain harmony or something along those lines. And while that might technically work, I find it creates a certain formulaic result, and it's too predictable and maybe too neat. So, as I said, I'm working with gray plaster, and I'm aware that that will have exactly that same result for my work for this particular piece. And I'm able to push and pull on the amount of pigment I'm adding to create more drama with regards to chroma where I want it. So generally speaking, try to stay away from a systems-based approach to color. It just takes away from all those little small surprises as you paint. I mean, ultimately, art isn't supposed to be math. It's supposed to sort of empower and surprise you. Now, having said all that, when I'm painting portraits, for example, and in particularly if I'm trying to get a likeness, I have to be more intentional about how color relates to one another on that surface. But in abstract or textural work like this, which is a lot of fun to do, I have to tell you, I want color to evolve naturally. And it's generally guided by how it feels on the surface. not by what a color wheel says it should do. It's much looser, more intuitive, and much more fun, as I said. When working in this buon fresco method, I've learned that patience and preparation make all of the difference. As the plaster starts to cure, you'll notice hard edges forming wherever it begins to set. Now, I'm after these hard edges. I like broken color effects. However, sometimes you may want to soften them, soften these transitions. As you saw me there earlier, and I'm doing right there, I'm blending, having added just a bit of water, a mist of water, and I'm blending gently. And that kind of keeps the surface interesting, not having hard edges everywhere, and having it look more organic and unified. One of the first things you want to keep in mind, however, before you start working, if you plan on using this method, is that your substrate has to be sturdy. This material, as I mentioned, is alive. It breathes, it expands, and it contracts. So everything that flexes or shifts, think canvas, think mylar, I've mentioned that many times thus far on this channel, has any kind of shift underneath, will eventually cause cracking, which is definitely not desired. And of course, always remember, working with dry pigment, you've got to be in a well-ventilated room, and this is not just for pigment. Even though this plaster is already pre-mixed, I'm not working with powdered lime here, it's also corrosive to your skin as well. So just be mindful of that. So it's natural material. I should here, however, differentiate that we're not talking about drywall compound. Lime plaster is essentially earth transformed. Think historically, Michelangelo, Sistine Chapel done in this way, or even someone like Raphael who painted the School of Athens in the Vatican, and others during that period like Sandro Botticelli, and to some extent Leonardo da Vinci used this technique as well. But even before them, during the Byzantine Empire, this was very prominent, this same technique, and of course much sooner, before that I should say, during even the Egyptian period, thousands of years before Christ. So I wanted to give you this historical context in how this material is sort of derived. Limestone essentially is just sedentary rock that's been ground down, that's been formed over obviously millions of years, heated, and then they've added water and becomes what's known as slated lime, or workable material that you can add things to, like sand, marble dust, or natural fibers to create this plaster. What's beautiful, really, and actually deeply poetic about it, is that the material completes a full circle with the earth. When lime plaster is applied to a surface like the substrate, it slowly absorbs carbon dioxide from the air, reverting back to limestone during this process over time. So it literally breathes, taking in air, hardening naturally, and becoming stone once again. That's why we call lime plaster alive. It reacts to humidity, temperature, and air, expanding and contracting, kind of aging in a way. And it's something beautiful about it. It creates a certain harmony with the environment around it. From our perspective as artists, this means you're not just painting on the earth, you're painting with it. Every stroke, every layer of pigment becomes part of this sort of slow living exchange between material, the way you apply it, the air, and time. A couple more points before I let you see this painting up close. Firstly, this plaster requires about a day or two to cure fully as the water evaporates, after which you want to seal this surface. It is as hard as stone, however it can be brittle, and particularly around the edges, and it is somewhat porous still. So to protect it against, accidents with drinks, spillage, anything, you want to put a thin coat of wax, which I've done for this piece as well as this piece. Now, I should have probably mentioned this while I was painting. I did 2 parallel pieces for this demo. In fact, let me show you this one here. This is more of a vertical format piece, whereas this is of course square. It is about 24 by 24 inches. In many ways, this particular guy that was completed before dictated the composition for this larger painting. And in fact, I like them both in their own respective ways. I'm going to keep them both for sure. Anyway, let's see how our painting looks up close like. Thank you very much for watching all the way to the end. Next week we'll explore another topic in our art tips video series that deals with details, so do come back for that. Happy painting.